Samantha from Jessima Tutorials here, and today I'm going to show you how to create a cute pair of translucent spiral earrings. So what I've got here are two pieces of translucent Primo polymer clay, and they've been rolled out just on the thickest setting of my pasta machine. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to colour them using alcohol ink. If you can get hold of already coloured translucent polymer clay, that works as well, but if you don't have access to that, you can always colour it yourself using alcohol ink or even a tiny piece of coloured clay. And I'm just going to pop those drops down. Okay. And I've actually decided to go with this colour. This is turquoise. Also, something you want to keep in mind with alcohol ink is they do have quite a significant colour shift after they've been baked. So if you want a specific colour and you're not quite sure if you're going to be able to, you're not quite sure what the, I would suggest making a test piece to make sure that you're getting the exact colour that you want. Like, I know that this one over here, the turquoise one, is going to be quite a bit more green than it will look once mixed into the translucent clay once baked, and blues generally, if they're on the more purple side of things, will actually turn a little red. So definitely would suggest testing it out if you're not quite sure which way the alcohol ink's going to turn. Now I'm going to allow these two to dry, and then I'm going to mix the colours through. Okay, and I just spread that ink out just so that it dries quicker. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just fold that over once it's dried a bit. And I would recommend mixing this through by hand first, because the ink generally will get over your pasta machine and it can be a bit of a mess to clean, so I like to mix it up, at least for the first little bit, by hand. That way all of the mess gets onto my acrylic roller, which is much easier to clean, and then you can start mixing it through your pasta machine. And you're going to do that with both colours. Also bear in mind that I have chosen these colours today for this project because I'm going with kind of ocean theme today, but you can use any colour of alcohol ink you want, so don't feel like you have to use the colours that I am using. And there are those two colours mixed. So I've also run it out on about the middle setting of my pasta machine. It's about 1 millimetre thick, give or take. I've done that for both of them. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply some metal leaf to this. And this is an option, you don't have to do this, but I want to add a little bit of extra shine to the piece. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pop a little bit of this turquoise metal leaf onto the piece. And you can use any colour metal leaf you want. Silver would be another good option if you're going with the same colours that I'm going with. And I don't want to cover up too much of the piece, just enough that it's going to add a little bit of extra shine. And I'll do the same to this piece as well. And there we go. Right, then just smooth them down so that they just completely stuck to the clay. And then we're good to start making our piece. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to be doing a kind of a mix between the torn watercolour paper technique and a Mokume Gane. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rip pieces of the colours up, and then I'm just going to pop them together like so, just patching them up together so that I've got a good distribution of all the colours. And you can work with more than two colours, it doesn't have to be just the two that I have here. But I'm going to just tear them up and piece them back together again. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to then smooth that all down so it's one piece, and then I am going to apply white paint and texture, and then I'm going to shave it so that just this top bit of the texture is showing, and then hopefully we'll have a translucent image. and that will all make sense later on, but that's my general idea for the piece. So just keep doing exactly what I'm doing here, where you piece all of the colours together to form a solid piece of clay. Okay, and there we go. Then all you're going to do is you're going to take a piece of paper and you're just going to use that to smooth down the surface, and you can roll, doesn't matter too much. All you want to do is just smooth everything down so that it's one consistent, even piece of clay. And I put the piece of paper there because both it gives the clay a matte finish, and it also prevents any debris getting on it, because sometimes your roller will pick up things, sometimes there'll be alcohol, ink, things like that. So I like to put the piece of paper there as a buffer to prevent any dirt getting on the piece. Alright, and then the last little bit I'll do with my fingers, just because they can get in and make sure that I've done a good job, because you'll be able to feel whether it's flat or not. Okay, and that should be the result. So you can see that we have a good pattern and it's all smoothed out. Now just going to lift that up off the tile, and this is what the back looks like, and you can see it, there's still gaps there. And so if that's the case, bring over a piece of paper again and another one, and just sandwich the clay between the two, and then give it another burnish until everything is smoothed out. Okay, and there you go, you should end up with a nice smooth finish like that. I'm also just going to lift that up off the paper so that it doesn't dry out, because when clay sits on paper, the paper will draw out the oils and will dry the piece out. So just make sure that you lift that up. You can already see there how it will pick up some of the colour. Alright, now we're good to do the Mokume Gane. Now I am a little nervous because I think this might be a little too thin. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut it in half, like so, and I'm actually going to place it on top, and I'm actually going to fold it over so that the metal leaf is going to get covered, so you'll be able to see that through the translucent, but it's not going to be exposed. That way it will protect it as well. And then I'm going to run that through so that it is about 1.5 millimeters thick on my pasta machine. There we go. And you can see the metal leaf through there. And as I was saying, that now allows you not to worry about sealing the piece, because the metal leaf is covered by the polymer clay. Right, then you're going to choose one of the two sides, doesn't really matter, and you're going to grab some white acrylic paint, and you're just going to pop that down onto the surface. And you could use white polymer clay instead in a really thin sheet if you wanted to, but I'm going to be using white paint, both because it's going to give me kind of a crackly aged effect, but also because you're always going to be able to get the paint in a thinner layer than you will with the clay. And I'm going to use this to show off the Mokume Gane. Okay, and then I don't want lines showing, so I'm going to actually tap over the surface like so, and then I'm going to allow that to dry, and then if it's a nice solid coat of paint, then we can move on to the next step. If it's not quite as solid as I would like it, I can always add another coat of paint. Okay, and there we go. And I did end up applying one more coat so that it was a little bit more of an, excuse me, I did apply a second coat so that the white was a little bit more opaque, because you could see too much of the blue with just the one coat. Now you want to choose a texture stamp, and I'm going to be using this bubble texture stamp here. It's one of my texture stamps on my Etsy store, Jessima Design. I will have a link to that in the description below. But what I'm grabbing here is just a little bit of cornstarch, and I'm going to dust the piece with that. And let me just get rid of the extra cornstarch and just brush that over, and brush that over this as well. And I will also do that to the back, just so that it doesn't stick to my fingers or anything like that. Right, then remove the extra cornstarch, give this a little tap. Okay, and remove that. Then pop this down onto your texture stamp of choice. Okay, and this should be completely non-stick. Yes, is good. And then I'm just going to use my roller to roll across the surface once. And there we go. That's the pattern that I have. Okay. Then just gently press that onto your tile so that it sticks a little bit. Grab a thin, and I'm not sure if this is textured enough. I think it'll be okay. I probably should have pressed it in with my fingers rather than just rolling it, but I'll have to work with what I have. But to start with, I'm just going to trim away the extra clay around the edges that don't have any texture. Okay, and this is a nice thin tissue blade, and what I want to do is just shave off the very top part of the texture, leaving the paint in the lines. And keep all of these little bits, they look fantastic. I might make a second pair of earrings with those, but you want to just be taking off very, very thin slices, just so that you leave the paint as a pattern. And this is why I decided to use paint rather than clay, because it allows you to it just is a bit thinner, and so you don't have to take as thick slices, and it can make it a little easier. But you're just going to go across the whole surface like so, shaving away the top layer of paint and revealing the pattern. Okay, and there is the result. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to bring over a piece of paper again, and I'm going to give this a burnish so that it flattens out the texture and smooths everything out, leaving us with the pattern. And then this over here I am going to combine with the scraps that were left. So I'll show how to do that in a moment once I've finished smoothing this piece out. Okay. Just lift that up, see if it's smooth. There might be a couple spots, especially where the dots are, so you might want to go back in and re-burnish those, but you want the whole piece flat. And there we go. Right, I'm going to just pick that up and pop that to the side on a piece of paper, and I'll work with that in a little bit. And now I'm going to bring over these pieces. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to stack these pieces just together, just form that into a rough ball of clay, and then chop it up like so. Okay, and then pop that back together again, and this time make sure it's all really stuck together. And this isn't going to be part of the main project, this is just a quick conclusion on what to do with the scraps. Okay, now I'm going to take slices of that, and I'm going to pop that together, and that on its own looks really cool. Just to piece that all together. Okay, and I'm going to grab a roller and just flatten that out. Make sure that they're all stuck together. Okay, and on the back I'm going to apply these pieces, but this needs to be rolled out first. And that should be enough space to work with. Then I'm going to take these and I'm just going to apply them like so. And bear in mind that they do have cornstarch all over them, so they're going to be a little tricky to get to stick. So just apply them roughly. Then grab just another piece of paper. Just bear with me for 1 second. There we go. Just going to apply that there. There we go. And then give it a thorough burnish so that you stick everything together. Okay, and that's how it should look. And it looks really quite fantastic. Alright, now I've got our 2 pieces to make our earrings from. So I'm going to bring over both, and because these earrings are going to be double-sided, I want to make sure that both sides of the earring look nice. So I am going to pop it between 2 pieces of paper and give it a burnish so that everything is smooth, and then we're going to cut out the pieces. Okay, and then once you've done that, you're good to cut your pieces out. And what I'm going to be using are these little triangle cutters, and I'm going to use the largest one, or the widest one. And I will leave a link to these in the description below. And actually, I'll use the second one down as well. And then you're going to also want something to wrap these around, and I'm going to be using this little metal mandrel I have, but you could also replace it with a metal straw. That would work just as well. Alright, and the widest one I'm going to use here, and I'm going to choose a spot that I like. I'm actually going to cut this on the tile so that it doesn't stick in the cutter. Okay, and then just choose a nice spot. Let's see, I think this looks nice right here, and I want to cut it at an angle. And that's 1, and I'm going to want 2, so cut there as well. And I'm just going to make 2 for today. I don't need more than that, but you could cut out as many as you want. Pop that to the side. I'm going to bring this over, and I'm going to repeat the effect. I'm going to pop that down, give it a very quick rub down so that it sticks to the tile. Bring over the cutter, and again choose the spot that you like and cut out your pieces. And there we go. And you can pop those to the side and use them for other things, or you could make more earrings. Okay, and you want to lift each one of them up, and just be careful when you do this. Just use a blade to just pop them up off the tile, and just give them a tap along the edges so that they smooth out. Bring over the tool that you're going to use to wrap them on, place them down, and I'm just placing that into the right spot. Okay, there we go, and then just twirl it around like so, and you can readjust as you want. But there we go, and you're going to do that with all of the other pieces as well. Okay, and there we go. Then you're just going to take a little blob of scrap clay, and you're going to place it onto the tile that you're going to bake these on anyway, and you're just going to use that to balance this so that it's not so that these pieces aren't sitting on the tile, and that way it will keep it elevated. And then you go bake this for a full hour at Primo's recommended temperature, and then the alcohol ink will shift. You'll end up seeing a fair bit of colour change, and everything will clear up as well, so you'll be able to see the pattern even better. And then yeah, from there we might do a little bit of sanding, probably not because there is paint on here, but yeah, we'll see what we end up with once they're baked. And here is how it looks once it's out of the oven. And I did just quickly pop this in a sink of water to speed up the cooling. And then you just should be able to slot these right off, like so. And then that, well, you can just pop that to the side and use it again. And that's how these will look. Now, they do need to be sealed, so what I'm going to do, and I also want them to have a nice shiny finish anyway, so what I need to do is just drill them. Now I'm going to grab a little pin drill here, and you might need to support this with your finger, and just drill at the top where you want your jump ring to be placed later. And just be careful if you are using your finger not to apply too much pressure to the drill, because when it comes through the other side you want to be able to just stop it, so don't press too hard. Okay, and once I've got halfway through, I'll actually move my finger out the way. Okay, and there we go. And you're going to do that with all of the pieces. Okay, and then once you've done that, just pop your pieces onto a wire so that you can dip them in the varnish. And I've got a little basket off to the side here on which I am going to suspend this, so just have that ready to go. And here's the pot of varnish, and I'm using Varathane Polyurethane water-based gloss varnish. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to grab these, and they'll all be bunched together, and that's fine. I'll separate them out later. I'll just pop them in there, and then just suspend the wire over the top, and just give it like 60 seconds to drain most of the varnish. And after that you can just use a tool to separate them out so that they're not all on top of each other. And then you're going to pop that over onto the basket so that they can dry completely. Okay, and while they're on the basket, you're going to find that they do have little drips, so just grab a baby wipe or any kind of rag, and just every once in a while tap the bottom of the piece to soak up those drips. And you're going to do that for about 5 minutes on and off, and at that point the varnish should have dried enough that it's not going to develop drips anymore. And I'm going to allow it to dry another 15 minutes, then I'm going to dip it again, repeat the process so that I have 2 coats of varnish on there. Okay, and then once they're varnished, this is how it should look. And it's a little difficult to show it completely in this light because the effect really only comes out in sunlight or when it's being hung directly with light coming from behind it, because the clay is semi-translucent, and so it carries through the light, and the white doesn't allow the light through, and so you get a really cool pattern. But hopefully you can see generally how that looks. Also, hopefully the photographs that I showed at the beginning of the tutorial will show how it actually looks. Now, to finish it off, I'm just going to grab a jump ring and a length of chain, and just make sure that you cut 2 lengths of chain at the same length so that you can create the pair of earrings. And then you're just going to pop that through the hole, and just bear with me for one moment. There we go. Okay, and pop your ear wire on and close that up. And then to get the chain into the right spot, just take that and just wind it so that it sits in the middle. And then you've got a nice little decorative piece of chain that just kind of carries the colour through and gives the piece a lot of movement. And I've done that for this pair of earrings. It's difficult to show because it doesn't really lie very nicely. It needs to be hanging up to really show how it looks. But yeah. And then for these pieces, I have just gone with a simple stud with no chain running through the middle. So you can choose to do that as well if you want to. But yeah, that is pretty much it for the tutorial. Keep in mind that the veneer that I showed at the beginning, this piece can be used with just about any earrings you want. You could make a trinket dish out of it as well, so don't feel like you have to make these little earrings. But I thought that they would be a perfect shape for this veneer that I made, and I think they turned out quite cute. So yeah, let me know what you thought in the comments below. Will you be trying this out? Do you have questions or suggestions for future tutorials? Leave them in the comments below. And if you like the video, please do consider leaving a like and subscribing, as I do videos like this almost every single day now. And if you'd like to support the channel further, please do consider becoming a member. There is a join button just below the video, or you can check out my Patreon. Both are exactly the same and are greatly appreciated. And again, I do hope that you enjoyed the tutorial, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.